Set your eyes on a Range Rover and you immediately get that traditional sense of luxury but in a crisp, minimalistic form. Now the full-size Range Rovers take this up to a whole new level these days, but it all started with this, the Range Rover Velar. So with how well sorted the styling was to begin with, Land Rover hasn't had much to do with this update to keep the Range Rover Velar feeling fresh. You get new pixel LED lighting in the front and a slightly different grille pattern that adds a touch more modernity to the face. That being said, this clean swept look to the face that ties in with the unfussy bodywork still makes the Velar one of the more attractive SUVs out there. The new Range Rovers take this forward, but the Velar's best angle is still probably its side profile. The way the roof and bodywork converge at the end give it a sleekness that looks rich. The new color matched 20-inch wheels on this example do a great job of complementing this too. The rounded look to the rear carries on with the modern minimal theme and has been spruced up with sleeker new lighting. This again fits naturally into the existing styling while adding a touch more crispness to the overall look. Now the overall design of the dash hasn't changed, but the simple look of it and the smart play of materials and textures means that it still feels fresh, and that minimalistic approach that you find in Range Rovers, that's been taken to a whole new level with this Velar. You get a new steering wheel which fits into this whole wine red and grey theme very well. And then of course the instrument cluster screen, its basic outline has remained the same, but the sub menus and the general look of it and the resolution seems to have grown better. But what immediately catches your eye in this cabin is this center console. There's not a button in sight, just a smooth flat layer of this textured wood here, and it really does stand out in this crowd of quite fussy cabins. Of course, you have this new gear lever, the new Range Rover and Land Rover gear lever, and it's as usual quite nice to use, functional and crisp. But the fallout of this is that every function is now in the screen. And while it is a crisp screen that works very well, it's of 11.4 inches size, which to be honest, considering the amount of functions in here, could have been slightly larger. Maybe the 13-inch one from the full-size Range Rover could have been brought down here. Even with the strong focus on style, practicality hasn't been lost on the Velar. The wireless charger is hidden away neatly behind the wood panel, and you have an ample amount of storage in the doors and in the deep central bin. Its split opening lets you maximize the space further. Boot space is good too at 552 litres since you get a full-size spare. The Range Rover Velar happens to be pretty well equipped too. You get 4-zone climate control, Meridian audio, a 20-way adjustable front seat and a PM 2.5 air filter. Now the Velar is still a Range Rover, which means that you will not be disappointed in the back seat of it. You get this really large panoramic sunroof to begin with a nice tint to it, and that brightens up this fairly dark cabin immediately. Although we would have liked sunshade, that's not bad news at all from here on. Now in terms of how comfortable it is, there's good headroom as you can see, although if you are about 6 feet tall that might be a bit of an issue with how the roof sort of comes in here. But there's enough place to put your feet, the floor sort of rises up which makes for a nice rest if you will. But what really sort of enhances the comfort is this powered recline function. And you really can recline to, as you can see, quite a nice angle. So long journeys you will be comfortable in the Velar. But safety could have been given more attention. There are no ADAS features and you get 6 airbags as standard. But there is a crisp set of 360-degree cameras, TPMS, hill hold, hill descent control and torque vectoring by braking. As expected from a Range Rover, the Velar will go quite some way off-road despite its prim exterior. You get all-wheel drive with a central locking differential, terrain response 2 with weight sensing, 2 off-road ride height settings, the transparent bonnet feature being the highlights. Now first things first, getting into the Velar is pretty easy. You have an access mode for the air suspension that lowers the car to a very comfortable height. Now coming to the driving experience itself, we are driving the diesel version of the Velar, and this is powered by a 2-litre turbo diesel that makes about 204 PS and 430 Newton meters. And it is a very refined engine and one that suits the Velar pretty well. When you are just starting out like we just did right now, it's a bit hesitant to be honest before the turbo fully spools up. But once you are up and running, it's got that very likable thing that diesels do, that linear flat torque delivery, and It's got a fairly wide power band too for a diesel, so you notice that the Velar will keep pulling right up to close to 4000 RPM, maybe 3500, which means that even though in terms of outright outputs it may be slightly down on other rivals within the same price bracket, but in the real world you barely notice this difference. The 8-speed ZF gearbox also does its bit. In the D mode, it's a bit hesitant to downshift under hard acceleration, but in more sedate driving, the wide power band tides you through this. In any case, switching to the sport gearbox mode fixes this to quite an extent without the Velar becoming too snappy. You also have well-judged drive modes. These don't make an especially stark difference, but in the dynamic setting there is a pleasing enhanced engine note that makes things more exciting. In any case, the Velar is as refined as you want an SUV of its price to be, with well-controlled wind and tire noise, helped by active noise cancellation. But really what has changed from the last time we drove the Velar the most is the ride and handling characteristics of this SUV. The last version we drove was a petrol with, if I remember correctly, steel suspension, but with this new adaptive air suspension package, with the adaptive dynamics active damping, it feels a lot more sprightly, it feels a lot more planted than what we remember it to be. But generally in terms of an SUV that you would drive regularly, that you might sometimes want to push a bit harder, it has that connected, secure feeling that you want so much. Priced at Rs 1.14 crore on road, the Range Rover Velar competes with the slightly larger Mercedes GLE and BMW X5. As the sales numbers show, this new model has carved out its own space in this price range, and it's not difficult to see why. You could ask for more space and performance, but you get the bragging rights of the Range Rover brand at a more accessible price, good features and driving dynamics, a stylish cabin, and that striking look.